Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, there's not really much else for me to say, housekeeping or whatever. So let's get right into the news. The first news story is, I wanted to give a little bit of because this is a news story that I kind of saw a little bit on Twitter, and also it's on, Pink News, and it's interesting, and it's just a news story detailing a little bit of the situation in regards to Indonesia. Now, Indonesia, if you don't know, has, in October of last year, the recently elected president of Indonesia issued a 70-page presidential regulation on defense policy. And it was basically a thing that a lot of world leaders do, and we might talk a little bit about it, certain other aspects of how certain leaders do certain things later in this episode. But it was basically him giving a decree on his nation's defense policy. But specifically, he wanted to focus on things that were non-military threats. So basically internal threats that could quote unquote destroy the fabric of his nation, threats in his nation that are not military threats per se, but are perceived to be not bigger threats, but domestic threats. His threats included, but were not limited to, illegal trafficking, natural resource theft, terrorism, radicalism, atheism, online gambling and drug abuse, and, quote, the promotion of LGBTQ culture. And this presidential decree was basically, for lack of a better term, him declaring basically war against gay people. It wasn't I don't think the military officially has gotten involved in attacking LGBTQ people specifically, but this has basically led to lax regulation in regards to protecting LGBTQ people. And violence, this has basically led to the rise of a paramilitary. The group itself, because this is the thing, there's not a lot about this specific aspect of it in Western media, but there's apparently a group, I guess for lack of a better term, a libertarian militia called the Bati Hunters. Bati, or Bodhi, is the Indonesian word for bottom, which basically just means, it's basically just slurs for gay and trans people. Gay men who are bottoms and trans women. Or I guess technically it's just gay men in general, and the insinuation that they're all bottoms, but that's the thing. It's they basically started attacking LGBTQ people within Indonesia. And many trans Indonesians have suffered attacks from them. As far as I'm aware, the attacks have not gotten explicitly hardcore violence, but there have been some assaults, and there have been moments where they've been just open calls for their deaths is one thing. One of their most popular phrases is "run over bottoms," and yeah, that is there's not much for me to say on that because I don't have much information from it. The only news source I have is one that just kind of covers the general, just the general president of calling the president calling out this issue in the first place, leading the charge on this issue in the first place, and not much about the specifics within this issue. But if you're an LGBTQ Indonesian, I hope you're safe. And speaking of government suppression and stuff, let's move on to the next news story. And it is the U.S. seeking the extradition of a wealthy pro-Palestinian donor by the name of Fergie Chambers. Well, his name is James Chambers, but his nickname is Fergie Chambers. And Fergie Chambers, there's a chance that a lot of you know, there's a chance that people in the audience know who he is, but if you don't know who he is the grandson of 1920 Democratic presidential candidate James Cox, who was a TV magnate who started I don't know what specifically it is, a television broadcast, not a broadcaster, but a Cox Industries, COX, Cox Industries, if you've ever seen those cars running around, Fergie Chambers is the heir to that fortune. And Fergie Chambers seemingly has become I think he's affectionately called himself a class traitor, literally. And he's effectively just, I was going to say that he's basically a modern day Frederick Engels, because what he's done with his immense wealth is that he has given money to pro-Palestinian causes all across the world. And what is currently happening is that the US is extraditing him because they're claiming that he gave money to Hamas, because he has donated more than $1 million to pro-Palestinian causes and humanitarian projects in Gaza. And that is the thing that is very interesting, just to note. Like, in Gaza. Because, here's the truth of the matter. If you've donated money specifically to Gaza, or like infrastructure in Gaza to an extent, like if you've not necessarily if you've donated money specifically into Gaza, like even entirely, like, I mean, of course, you know, there's like donations that you can give to individual people in Gaza and stuff, but like if you've given money to Gazans, like to Gaza itself to help rebuild or whatever, basically almost, you've all seen this, where it's like, every single thing has been called Hamas in Gaza, where it's like, you can't donate to UNRWA because Unrwa's Hamas, or you can't donate to this, it's Hamas, blah, blah, blah. This is Hamas, And one element on his Wikipedia page, I wanted to look at this, I looked at this part of the Wikipedia page just because I just wanted to get a little bit more information about, like, you know, his career and activism and like, I mean, he's basically, like, I mean, I'll just read this section because I wanted to get this section, like, I mean, because, like, there's this part where it's, like, his views, and it basically explains, like, his political opinions, and, you know, obviously where some things would, quote-unquote, lead to people to be critical of him, but let's read this part of his Wikipedia page. It says right here, Chambers has stated that he is the founder of Fox, Umma, an Egyptian-based media outlet aligned with the Iranian state media channel Press TV, the United National Anti-War Coalition, and the Workers' World Party, according to the Network Contagion Research Institute. Now, I wanted to bring that up specifically, not to, like, again, like, you know, because you could also, I mean, some people would read that and go, aha, see? This is proof that he's bad. He works with the Iranian state media and blah, blah, blah. And this is one thing I want to mention. I just want to mention, like, I mean, there's a reason why I mentioned, I would have just read the information and not mention who said the information if it weren't for the fact that the information is somewhat useful to learn. And if you go to the Network Contagion Research Institute Wikipedia page, you will see on their activities page, they have a wide variety of activities that they've, of course, talked about, you know, ranging from right-wing stuff, you know, obviously, you know, they've included reports about QAnon, the Boogaloo movement, you know, other kinds of bad things. Then they also wrote a report that claimed that DEI programs increased workplace hostility and racial bias. Interesting note. Then they have an entire section where they talk about anarcho-socialist networks. And, big one, their section on Democratic Socialists for America. Let's read what this organization, that is apparently somewhat involved in bringing to attention Fergie Chambers to the United States government, says about Democratic Socialists of America. In 2026, NCRI wrote that Democratic Socialists of America, quote, acts as an unregistered foreign agent inside the United States and coordinates with hostile foreign states to foment domestic unrest. NCRI says that DSA should be investigated for compliance under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. As proof, NCRI said that groups of DSA members have visited Venezuela, Cuba, or China 6 times in the past 6 years, including self-organized visits. DSA has 100,000 members. On February 10th of 2026, the House Ways and Means Committee invited NCRI to testify at a hearing titled Unmasking Threats from Beijing and Beyond about foreign influence in American nonprofits. NCRI founder Adam Shawn wrote that DSA chapters play a central organizing role in nationwide and anti-ICE protests. Shawn said that DSA is an increasingly consequential threat vector because it supports foreign-aligned narratives and undermines public legitimacy for core state functions. Ken Klippenstein labeled this as McCarthy-era campaign against DSA. So yeah, it's very clear what's going on. This is not meant to specifically go after Fergie Chambers for any alleged wrongdoings that Fergie Chambers has done. You can make, if you want to make a specific claim about Fergie Chambers, that's your opinion, but I'm just saying, it's very clear that this is just an attempt to slowly push more dissent, like basically criminalize more dissent. And this comes after a wide variety of other stories, including but not limited to the fact that Marco Rubio has stated that he actually intends to put more left-wing groups under foreign terrorist accusations in the upcoming months. So many people are obviously wondering, I wonder what organization they're desperately trying to go for next. And if I had to take a wild guess, I would say that they might start off with the PSL, but then make their way, of course, obviously to DSA. That's the unfortunate truth. We all know this is coming. This is the problem. And again, this is why I didn't, I gotta say it again. That's why I didn't vote for Trump and why I voted for Kamala, because again, Kamala Harris would not have actually designated DSA as an evil organization. And again, it is very interesting that we see this going on, and then also we're going to hear people say that somehow DSA is not like an actual threat to the American apparatus. Huh? Interesting. But this is the thing I actually want to mention here. I just want to mention this because I actually, I saw, a thing where it's, red baiting. I saw a Spooky Scary Socialist, stream part where it's, red baiting is back. And it's, this is the thing that is very interesting about this term of red baiting and why I'm not entirely sure if it will succeed. You see, because there's a difference between, the red scare propaganda of yesteryear and the red scare propaganda of today. You see, in the past, red scare propaganda was an actual legitimate thing. And the reason why it was an actual legitimate thing was because when I say legitimate thing, I mean it was a thing that was more palatable to a lot of people. And the reason for that was because at the time period, there was an actual alternative to, socialism or communism. You see, the thing is, because the last time the Red Scare was really, 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 really big was the 60s, 50s, and that was kind of the era of America. That was America's liberal decade. Liberal. I just want to double check. How long was the Warren Court? 1953 to 1969. Basically, in the United States, the era of liberalism in the United States was basically 1932. I'm being generous and including the FDR years, even though that probably is a little bit more here and there to an extent. But it's there's that, and then the it was basically that all the way to again I would say 1969, 1960, probably 68 or 69, maybe even just broadly 1970. The election of Nixon obviously made American liberalism sort of die out, but the true American time period to really be alive was FDR to late LBJ. That was the era of American liberalism, and they were Cold War hawks. They hated communism. They hated communists, and they were not nice to communists either. They were anti-communist, and they did anti-communist actions, both foreign and domestic. Yes, Republicans obviously led a lot of the charge in regards to the McCarthyism era specifically, but again, that was because America had liberal things to lose. They had high wages. They had things that they actually were worried about losing. But nowadays, what does Americans have to lose? The average American does not have anything to lose in this situation. The weather is fucking atrocious. We're all fucking burning to death. There's smog in our lungs. Literally in almost every semblance of the word, wages have gone down ever since the fucking that time period. And it's just the average American has nothing. And as such, there's nothing for them to lose. And that's the thing. It's always, and it really is just that. In the Trump era, they have nothing to, that's the problem. It's the Trump era is all about protecting the culture, protecting America, or blah, blah, blah. It's all the same bullshit rhetorical, fascist rhetoric that has happened in the past. But the problem is there literally is nothing. There's nothing for them to actually campaign on. There's no policies that are actually doing any good. In previous fascist experiments, even when they did policies that at least on the surface, at least protected the in-group. Because this is the thing, even the in-group doesn't see a victory. They're not seeing a victory. The in-group in America that is winning W's is literally just the rich white people. That's it. Even the poor white people, they aren't getting shit. And again, that's basically it. Trump knows, everybody knows that if a fair democratic election happens in November, then there's just nothing. There's just no turning back for us in that sense. But the problem is that going to happen? That's just the one thing. That's my one worry. If there is even going to be a fair and democratic election in November. That's the one thing that we all have to make sure that a fair democratic election happens in November. No matter what happens, that has to be guaranteed. And the current luck we have is just that the fact that the current administration is so fucking incompetent that it's just like, there's even in almost every sense of like, trying to silence dissent, it just doesn't make any sense. And there's another news story that I was going to mention. It's like a continuation of a previous news story. And it's basically like, this basically just kind of like officially come out like everything. It's like the U.S. Justice Department has announced they're investigating Shawn Fain, the UAW president, over corruption allegations. And Shawn Fain has explicitly went out front and just said, yeah, there's a reason why they're going after me specifically. And he hasn't said the specific reason why I think they're going after him, but he's basically said, like, my position on Gaza is one of the main reasons why they're going after me. And yes, that is part of the reason. And it's the reason why I think also we all should be doing everything in our power. If you're a member of the United Auto Workers, make sure you do everything in your power to keep Shawn Fain in the presidency. Because, again, there's a reason why they're going after him. Because he's an actual threat. Shawn Fain, it's the same reason why, again, they're starting to whisper oh, maybe we'll go after DSA, maybe hypothetically, I don't know. Because again, they're actual threats now. They're threats. And since they're threats, now they're scared. Shawn Fain, everybody's been saying man, a general strike would be crazy. Shawn Fain's organizing a general strike right now. It's not happening right now, but in 2028, when the next presidential election happens, the UAW, their contracts are going up. And everybody who has a job and plans to keep that job by May Day of 2028, you join with a strike. Just genuinely, even if you're not formally organized, just join the strike. Don't go to work on May 1st of 2028. I make it clear. If I have a job by May 1st of 2028, I'm not going to that job on that day. I'm not doing it. And Shawn Fain, a phone call has been released where literally it explains that Shawn Fain and the guy who was supposed to be in charge of, the investigation into Shawn Fain is where they were discussing the Gaza situation, where the guy basically said hey, yo, you can't be saying that Palestinian kids deserve to live. That's pretty anti-Semitic, dude. It's again, Shawn Fain is showing that he's an actual threat to the political class. And now, due to that fact, they're scared. And they should be scared because the tide is changing. And another example of the tide changing is the next news story, where over 100 House Democrats voted to end aid to Israel. The vote was 314 to 104. So, of course, the bill, it was basically specifically an amendment that Thomas Massie put forward, where he basically said, we're going to cut $3 billion to Israel. Or, I don't know if it was fully eliminating all their funding and that was all their funding, or if it's just that they were just going to remove a specific additional funding. But that was the big thing, where Thomas Massie introduced this bill, and this bill, this amendment to this bill was apparently so important that literally over 100 the Democrats joined with them. I'm not claiming that every single one of these votes who joined with the people to vote for this bill is specifically massive W's per se. I'm sure a lot of them are doing it purely for cynical reasons of just wanting to avoid a primary challenge. Because I think some of them were some of the Dems that were either going explicitly just had a primary challenge or specifically were avoiding a primary challenge. One aspect of this bill, this story that happened was that a ton of Democrats, let me check again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 15 Democrats, of the 15 Democrats, one of them was Adam Smith, who is currently facing a primary challenge. Well, not necessarily a primary challenge, a general election. Technically a primary challenge is nonpartisan challenge of Kashama Sawant. He voted against this. He voted with Thomas Massie on this bill as well. But the reason why I brought up those 15 members of Congress is because those 15 members of Congress were all AIPAC endorsed candidates. All of them were all fully endorsed by AIPAC. But now they're all unendorsed by AIPAC. AIPAC has literally on their website now, if you go to it, one of them is Gabe Amo. Go to the website and see his name. All of a sudden, you can't donate to his candidacy anymore through the AIPAC portal. And a similar thing, the most vocal of all the members of these Congress that voted for this bill was Pat Ryan, because Pat Ryan has always been the I guess for lack of a better term, the good moderate. That's basically what he is. He's the good moderate to an extent, where he's like friendly with AOC. He's like been like more vocal that like, we need new blood in the party, that kind of stuff. And on the Israel issue, even though again he's been like largely supportive of Israel for a long period of time, he's like in this point like finally taking a turn. It's just like, no, this is a bad idea. And it's basically say that he will send like any money that he received from AIPAC, he's going to donate it to somewhere else. Again, not to say that this is this is a big enough deal to warrant talking about it, because again, like people put out, this fact, 2 years ago, there was a similar bill that only 37 House Democrats voted for. Mostly of like the left-wing flank, the DSAers and like, the, I guess, hardline progressives. And this also shows just generally how far the Republican Party has went, because they point out this fact in this one. It's like, while the amendment in question was introduced by isolationist Republican Thomas Massie of Kentucky, every other member of his party rejected this amendment. That was itself evidence of how entrenched pro-Israel views have become in the GOP. 2 years ago, 21 House Republicans voted to cut Israel aid. Because yes, there used to be an isolationist like trench within the GOP where even they would express a lot of criticism for specific bills in regards to like military funding, usually be under the guise of like, we just don't like military funding or like funding the government period or whatever. But sure enough, seems that this is like, this is important to note. Is this, again, I'm not saying that this is like a massive change, because even like some of the people who did vote for this, like, Nancy Pelosi flipped for her long-standing support of Israel to vote for this bill. That doesn't make much of a difference now. She's leaving Congress. She's basically only mentioned, and even in her like statement of like, I voted against this bill, it was basically just like, we want to like express criticism of Netanyahu. It's like, yeah, but like, just to say, like, guys, voting good on a bill, that's kind of a good thing. We can't pretend that voting good on a bill isn't a good thing. But anyways, speaking of voting, apparently Wisconsin is going to be in a very interesting position when it comes to voting pretty soon. And that is because a couple of things have happened with the Wisconsin gubernatorial race. For those who don't know the Wisconsin gubernatorial race, in Wisconsin, there's, of course, a gubernatorial race going on right now. And in that race, there's been a lot of people who have stepped to the plate to run in this bid. The incumbent Democratic Governor Tony Evers can't run for re-election, and as the race has gone on, there's just a lot of issues that have been going on with this race. And particularly the big issue is the fact that there really was no clear person to succeed Tony Evers, because in the race, the two main people that were perceived to be the actual like real people to target and win against the race would be people like Mandela Barnes and Sarah Rodriguez, the former lieutenant governor and the current lieutenant governor. If you don't know, Mandela Barnes was also ran for Senate one time, and his bid was basically left completely hung out to dry because Democrats were afraid of a black man being their senator or whatever. But basically, in the race, again, there was a little bit of a problem finding out who truly was the person to be the candidate. And this is how bad it was. Early on in the race, 81% of voters in polls were undecided on who they wanted to be the nominee. And the highest polling candidate was a little-known state representative named Francesca Hong, who was a DSA member of the state house. And throughout the race, there were a ton of people who have tried to jump in to try and claim the torchbearer of like a good candidate or whatever. Tim Jacobson, the Oshkosh Defense Assembler, Missy Hughes, former CEO of Wisconsin Development Corporation, David Crowley, the Milwaukee County Executive, Kelda Hoy, State Senator for the 26th District, Joel Brennan, former Secretary of Wisconsin Department of Administration. But again, like most people saw the race as basically like effectively a done deal between Mandela Barnes and I guess Sarah Rodriguez, because they were the only ones that made logistical sense to be the torchbearer, I guess. And when Mandela Barnes entered the race, basically everybody like figured out that was the case, because like the first poll that was done, Mandela Barnes was winning. But then, as the race continued, for some reason, Francesca Hong started picking up steam in the race, and every other candidate just really couldn't build momentum. I mean, like technically, like it was to the point where the race essentially became Hong versus Barnes. Like literally, here are the polls that have been conducted in the race. First poll before Barnes entered the race, 6% for Francesca Hong. First poll after the race, after he entered, 28% for Barnes and 20% for Rodriguez. Then the next poll, Francesca Hong with 11%, Mandela Barnes with 10%, Sarah Rodriguez with 6%. Francesca Hong for 27%, next poll, 18% for Mandela Barnes, 6% for Rodriguez. 14% for Hong, 11% for Barnes, 3% for Rodriguez. Then next poll, 24% for Barnes, 12% for Rodriguez, 8.5% for Hong. And then next, Hong with 30%, 28% for Mandela Barnes, 19% for Rodriguez. So the race basically, again, kind of seemed like a done deal between these three candidates. But then controversy arose because Sarah Rodriguez, apparently, like, someone on her staff fucked up, and I guess it had something to do with the filings, and basically she was so embarrassed she basically dropped out of the race. And it seemed to get on deal. Like, oh, it was literally just going to be a Hong versus Barnes race. Technically there are other candidates, but nobody cares. Like, and I made a joke where it was like, basically it's like Robert LaFollette versus fucking like Ross Feingold, literally. Like, literally. It's surprising that there's actually, I mean, because some people have tried to like shit on Barnes, and Barnes isn't that bad of a candidate. I don't hate Barnes per se. I endorsed him almost immediately because, again, I thought that Barnes was probably going to be the frontrunner. But now that Hong has actually shown that she's an actual viable threat, I've at least said, like, you know, I know I am critical of using this term specifically, but like I finally gotten to the point where I can officially do the whole meme of like, well, there are two good candidates in this race. But of course, if I were in Wisconsin, I'd be 100% voting for Hong. And similar to other places where the left flank are winning, there's now a attempt to try and change things up. Because now, David Crowley, who had previously withdrawn from the race long time ago, on July 8th, actually, as of the day I'm recording this, he dropped out 10 days ago. He had already suspended his bid, and he was like, I'm fucking done with this race. But now, since Rodriguez, like, he dropped out and endorsed Rodriguez, that was the whole plan. Like, you know, now we can all unite behind this moderate candidate. But now that she's gone, basically, the Wisconsin Democratic Party has, for lack of a term, have officially just been like, okay, now we have to literally dredge his campaign out from the dead. And this is even worse. Now, they're explicitly calling for Mandela Barnes to drop out of the race, specifically, because again, they're specifically trying to avoid Hong from winning. Similar to what they did in Michigan when they're like, we need to have fucking like Mallory McMorrow drop out so that we can endorse, so that we can all unite behind, against Abdullah Saeed. And that's literally the thing. Like, that's it. Everybody's, like, basically every single person has been trying to claim that Francesca Hong is like a threat to the Democrats taking this gubernatorial seat. And I'm literally just like, everybody's been making the same meme where it's like, socialism is incredibly trenched within Wisconsin political culture. As I mentioned before, Robert M. LaFollette, there's sewer socialism. Fucking, like, the Socialist Caucus there's actually been a large Socialist Caucus in Wisconsin. Bernie Sanders won Wisconsin in 2016. Again, these are, like, this is, like, a state that could go to Hong. Like, Hong could win. Like, Hong literally could win logistically. And and this is the thing, like, Hong is, like, there's literally like a news article where it was like, Hong was pointing out that she had, like, literal crossover appeal. There were Trump supporters that were going to her and saying, wow, it's amazing that you're the candidate that I'm actually agreeing with. It's like, yes, same thing with Mamdani. They have crossover appeal. Same thing with Abdullah Saeed. They have crossover appeal because they actually meet the needs of the people. And it's funny. It's like, guys, the Democratic Party fucked, and this is the funny thing. It's like going to Mandela Barnes, like, Mandela Barnes, please help us. Like, what, help, Mandela Barnes, please help us stop Hong. It's like, yeah, stop Hong after you guys helped him so graciously after he won the fucking Senate race? When he literally, like, he was literally point something % away from winning. And again, you guys are gonna say, like, Mandela Barnes, can you do us a favor, please? It's like, fuck no, fuck you. I mean, I'm not even saying in the sense of, like, you know, whatever, please. David Crowley, you were polling literally in single digits the entire race. Please, jump in the race, please. Let's see how it goes. I literally don't care. Like, you're gonna be on the ballot regardless. Who cares? Just in the most genuine sense, literally, who cares? I think you should genuinely be in the race. Like, well, no matter if we're enemies or allies, Barnes, just genuinely, who cares? I want the best person of the race to win. Whoever wins the most votes should win. That's just a fact. I'm sick and tired of all this fucking, like, meddling in the primaries. I don't care. Like, it's the same thing with like fucking like in the race with like fucking like, and this is the thing, like if these shenanigans specifically do it, you are going to lose these seats. Like if Crowley wins the race if Mandela Barnes drops out and then Crowley wins the race, then Wisconsin will flip red. That is what will happen. And the same thing with Michigan. If thanks to Mallory McMorrow's dropping out, now Haley Stevens wins, the state will flip red. I didn't even think that literally until McMorrow dropped out. Like literally until McMorrow dropped out. And I didn't want to stay. I don't believe in the fucking like spoiler effect. I don't believe like, you know, specifically like, McMorrow supporters would have flipped to Abdullah Saeed or whatever, blah. I don't know. I don't know what Mallory McMorrow supporters are saying. I don't know what they think. All I know is at that point, there were 3 candidates in the race. At that point, the 3 candidates should have just duked it out. Why can't we have that anymore? I'm sick and tired of the fact that people are scared of fucking like actual primary bids. Like the idea that you are scared of a fucking primary bid or actual primary challenge because of this fucking like bullshit notion that like a primary challenge weakens your presidential candidate. Like, I mean, that's one of the big reasons. Like, if like it's like the same fucking notion. Like, oh, if there's a primary election against your opponent, then that means your administration's weak or whatever. It's like, yeah, and maybe if your administration's so fucking weak, then maybe you are gonna lose anyways. I don't care. I believe in democracy. Democracy should win. So I believe multiple candidates should run in seats. A similar thing happened in California where people were like where all of a sudden like a bunch of people who were like fucking like Tom Steyer losers were all crying about like the California just like system now. Like, oh my goodness, why is the California top 2 primary system a thing now? It's like, what are you talking about? This is a system that was praised for a long period of time, and now all of a sudden it didn't go your way. Now all of a sudden you're crying about it, and their perspective was like, oh, we should have a candidate that actually represents the will of the voters. Like, guys, have you not been paying attention? Tom Steyer didn't win. So ergo, he doesn't represent the will of the voters. And Tom Steyer wasn't even like going after like the most biggest like fucking like people. I mean, yeah, his race was obviously outspent, I guess, technically. But it's like Tom Steyer was a fucking billionaire. He had the money to like fucking like edge it out. Who fucking, and again, like, man, why are you guys so fucking like attached to a fucking billionaire, bro? But that's beside the point. I'm just ranting at this point. So let's move on to the main topic of this video. Haven't seen a lot of this show as of lately, have we? And oh boy, I picked the perfect org to bring back this series. Progressive Victory. You may know this organization, you may not know this organization. So here's a little bit of a background on what this organization is. This organization was founded in 2022 by a guy by the name of Sam Drismala and Vosh. Yes, that Vosh. The idea behind this organization was that they wanted to get the fan bases of various progressive streamers to touch grass and actually start organizing to support candidates that they deemed to be progressive. And on a surface level, the idea is not inherently bad. In fact, I would actually argue it's pretty good, especially considering, you know, we contrast it a little bit with last week's podcast. You know, people have critiqued a lot of political streamers, you know, and by a lot of political streamers, I basically mean all of them, but particularly the big 3, Destiny, Vosh, and Hassan, for turning, or I guess it's not just the left wing streamers, like the left streamers are the ones that we were going to focus on. They basically criticized those 3 for turning politics into a fandom. That fandom has basically become like, at this point, you no longer identify yourself as like, you know, I'm a socialist, I'm a progressive, I'm a liberal, or blah, blah, blah. You identify yourself as I'm a Vosh fan, I'm a Destiny fan, I'm a Hassan fan. So, I mean, if you guys are already going to have a large political fandom, maybe at the very least use your platforms for something somewhat useful. And their first forte into electoral politics seemed to be the 2022 Georgia Senate election, where they made 290,000 voter contacts and knocked on over 10,000 doors. And, like, for all of them to support the candidacy of Raphael Warnock. And by the end of 2024, they had made a total of 1,600,000 voter contacts and knocked on 340,000 doors. The group's ambitions were somewhat big for what the organization was. They literally, like, one of the biggest intentions of this organization was that they truly wanted to, like, one of the big things they wanted to really do was they wanted to fully unite the big 3. Vosh, Destiny, and Hassan into one organization and turn their fandoms from just stream chatters to actual political organizings. They've all done previous fortes into, active electoral politics in their own way. I think Destiny got involved in that one fucking in his hometown race and it didn't pan out. And we all know if you just know anything YouTubers getting actively involved in politics clearly has not worked out so well. You could just look at Cenk Uygur. Cenk Uygur didn't do so hot when he ran for office. Mike from PA didn't do so well when he ran for office. Keffels didn't do so well when she ran for office. What's his name? David Dole didn't do so well when he ran for office. There's more people, I forget. There's more people that there are more left-wing streamers that have run for office before, and they've all failed. Obviously, Destiny and Vosh were quick to join and bridge their differences. Because of their differences not being as big as other people. But Hassan took a little while to get up and join with them because of various reasons. We'll get to why in a little bit later. But the organization has, of course, grown a lot more. To get a lot more of the left and liberal people in the political streaming sphere to join with the organization. People like Pokimane, Soy Pill, Mr. Beat, and at one point getting Brianna Wu in the organization before firing her in 2023. Now, again, I need to mention this. The organization in of itself is not an inherently bad idea or even necessarily a bad organization on the concept. And even to the point where in January of this year, they even attempted to get a lot more serious. Now you can buy membership cards to this organization, and they've implemented a pledge that candidates are supposed to follow in order to get their endorsements. I'm not going to read their longer version of the pledge. I'm just going to read their Cliff Notes version of the pledge, which just kind of gives the basic points that you kind of get on their pledge. They have a 10-point pledge that you have to follow in order to get the endorsement of the organization, allegedly. Election integrity, ranked choice, congressional stock trading, overturn Citizens United. Healthcare, Medicare for all, codify Roe v. Wade. Stock market, publicly traded companies must have a $25 minimum wage and be unionized. Foreign policy, defend Palestine and Ukraine and stop war profiteering. Education, college for all. Climate, Green New Deal, expand nuclear power. Fourth Amendment, abolish ICE and qualified immunity, establish pathway to citizenship. 8. Transit, nationalization of railroad tracks, high-speed rail connecting all state capitals. 9. Copyright, restricting demonetization of fair use for React content, force platforms to default opt-out users for AI training. Finance, cap total interest paid at 100% of principal. Some of the stuff they say is fine. I don't necessarily agree with all the things that they say here. For example, I just gotta be upfront. The whole nuclear power shift, the whole nuclear power gimmick, I'm just kind of yeah. I know that nuclear power is obviously a lot more environmentally conscious than the current infrastructure that we have, but I don't know. I'm just genuinely really at the point where it's just look, I'm just saying, I guess I got, again, that's a little bit more of a complicated issue than we gotta get credit for. I think there needs to be a podcast at one point in the future where we have to talk about climate change specifically, because climate change, oh boy, I just can't, I can't pretend that I don't feel somewhat doomeristic on climate change to an extent, and now at this point. Not just saying it, because there's been multiple points where in these massive heat waves, my air conditioning has literally not worked, or at least not worked properly, or got overworked to the point where it literally became almost unfeasible for it to actually provide literal air. So the 100-degree air outside had to basically be lowered to at most feeling like an 80-degree inside heat. The fact that now we literally need to have air conditioning, the fact that we literally are in a position where air conditioning, which objectively makes the environment worse, is literally the only way that we can survive as a species now, is just fucking depressing. But that's beside the point. Again, there might be some nitty-gritty details that you might necessarily be oh, well, that's a little bit interesting. But yeah, for the most part, the organization itself and its principles, not necessarily inherently bad. And similar to most every other progressive or leftist organization, they endorse candidates sometimes, and they get on board and blah blah blah. But again, this video is not me giving praises to it, it's me giving criticisms. And yeah, I don't really like this organization specifically. Again, I'm not gonna, if you guys are in the comments section gonna say I like Progressive Victory, maybe watch the video and hear my criticisms or whatever. And if you still think that the organization is good, I'm not saying don't join the organization. I, in fact, at previous points have like just said like, yeah, I mean, if you're interested in like these specific moves, I mean, again, I'm just gonna say right here and now, like, if you want to put your skills to use with the organization, feel free to. I'm not saying don't. I basically never disencourage people from actively doing activism in any of their movements. If you do activism, you are literally almost always better than me. I'm literally just saying, like, we'll just get into that. I mean, the first criticism I want to point out is just this one. I mean, all the other fucking, like, progressive or leftist organizations that exist in the United States or whatever, I mean, I'm not going to say all of them have, like, necessarily, like, a bad reputation to an extent, but this one has the reputation of being the streamer organization. Well, I'm just saying, reading their platform, I definitely get the vibe of, the streamer organization. I definitely get that vibe. Like, the organization very clearly represents the needs of a specific subsection of left-of-center streamers. Again, like Vosh, Destiny, Dylan Burns, those types of people. I guess you can call them like various things. You could call them like, would breadtubers count? I guess technically yes, but also not. But I guess breadtuber pejorative. Like the anarcho-natalist types. Like, I guess for lack of a term, first campus leftists. I mean, I literally gotta be crystal clear. When I read their platform the first time I saw it, I actually legitimately laughed when I saw their copyright section. Like, the first thing I saw was that they had a copyright section. I'm like, oh, copyright? Ooh, that's my little pet issue that I've been going off of for a while. That's interesting. And then I read their copyright section, and I kind of just started laughing to an extent. But I'll be fair. I will read the full section of their copyright part of their platform, specifically to not misconstrue their points. Actually, I'm looking at their Google Doc now, and I'm realizing again. I'm remembering that this document was not as big as I thought it was, so I could have just read this whole thing. But let's just read the copyright section because it's the one I'm critiquing. Internet freedom. Expanding copyright and fair use law to account for both new media content creators and the rise of generative AI by requiring sites hosting user-generated content to opt out of that content from inclusion of generative AI training data by default, and imposing penalties on companies operating such sites when the content that falls under fair use is erroneously demonetized or otherwise penalized. Like, when it's explained like that, it's a little bit better. But again, just reading their fucking pledge to explicitly go like restricting demonetization of fair use for React content immediately makes me go like, oh, I get it. Oh, I see. You're just protecting the interests of, you guys. Like, you guys don't want to get in trouble for reaction content. And yet, and this is the thing, again, that made me laugh. Because you know me, I am not a fan of people who just use fair use as a get out of jail free card, because ultimately a lot of people don't understand what fair use means. Fair use is a literal legal doctrine with explicit rules on what you can and can't do. However, in doing research for many, many points of to fair use lawsuits, there have been many times where things that probably should have been considered fair use do not win copyright lawsuits. And one big element that makes me understand that a lot of people don't understand fair use is a thing that will be made into a video a little bit later. I have it written, but I haven't released it yet. And it's a video about parody, because a lot of people say that parody is fair use. Parody is not protected by fair use. Well, I should rephrase. Parody is not universally protected by fair use. Fair use, again, you have to go through the specific elements of fair use to explain how something is fair use. And the explanation of this that I can go over, I actually didn't write this part down, but I'm gonna read over the 4 factors of fair use and compare it to an example from not one of the people. I don't know if Hassan is truly affiliated with this organization, really, but I'm going to use myself and the Hassan, me reacting to my content controversy as an explanation to explain the copyrightability and fair use argument. Okay, so copyright, of course, has 4 factors of fair use. We're just going to read the main points of the factors. 1. Purpose and character of the use, including whether the use is of a commercial nature or is for non-profit educational purposes. Nature of the copyrighted work. Amount and substantiability of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. Effect of the use upon the potential market value of the copyrighted work. All right, let's go point by point. We're going to use, again, the Hassan Piker controversy. Like, for those who don't know about this controversy, Hassan Piker reacted to one of my videos. That is a thing that happened. I've been, of course, significantly more radicalized on the copyright issue ever since Hassan Piker did that reaction video. So I was not necessarily like super hardcore, like copyright, strike, whatever, but even at the time, and even then it was like, what am I going to do? I'm a fucking tiny channel and Hassan Piker's biggest left tuber in existence. Nothing really I could do about that, but this is literally what. Like, let's just go over it point by point. 1. Purpose and character of the use, including whether the use is of a commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. The video in question that I made was that got Hassan's attention was the video I made when I looked over the Mexican political system at the time period. And Hassan Piker reacted to that video. Like, the purpose and the character of the use, whether it was used for a commercial nature. Like, did Hassan Piker make money off of that stream? I'm going to take a wild guess and assume that he did. Ergo, that is him taking my copyrighted work at the time. I mean, technically it still is copyright, but like my work, because it was under the standard YouTube license at the time period. Now it's under a Creative Commons license, so that's a little bit different. But we're in on this again at the time. So purpose and character of the use, like commercial nature, nonprofit educational purposes. Was his work nonprofit educational purposes? No. Like, again, the court would basically look at the fact, like, did Hassan make money off of that stream? What was Hassan's purpose for using the content? Like, was it used for making money and whatever? Nature of the copyrighted work, which would, the factor of, like, how would, like, what was my creative expression? Like, I guess this is the fact that could potentially be a little less favorable to me, because my videos are mostly education. Technically, they are entertainment also, but for that one specifically, that one was really a lot more education focused. So technically, that would not necessarily be a factor in my favor per se. It could be in my favor to an extent because you could argue, like, the creativity I put into the video, but that's beside the point. That's more, again, this one's a little bit unclear. First one would probably be a lot more in my favor. The second one would probably not be in favor. The amount and substantiability of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. How much of my video was used in Hassan's work? Well, Hassan reacted to the entire video. So they would be not as nice to him in regards to that. But I should also mention this part where it's like, it says here, in other contexts, even using a small amount of copyrighted work was determined to not be fair because the selection had an important part or the heart of the work. And we'll touch upon that in a second, and we'll talk about this next one where it's like the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. What would the reaction be harmful to my work? And that is, again, that one could also be a little bit more here and there because I did get a bit of a bump per se in regards to my subscriber base to an extent after Hassan Piker reacted to my video. But for lack of a better term, that original video, if you sat there and watched the entire Hassan stream, you ultimately got what the whole video was about. You did not need to watch my video after the fact. But that's the thing about these factors. Like, the fact, those are the, like on the copyright website, those are the bolded parts are like the explicit like rules of the copyright, but then they have not bold text that goes over like that there's a lot more nuance that can go into aspects of it. Like for example, it says right here, this, like, let's read the one about like the purpose and character of the use. Number 1, they also explain courts look at how the party claiming fair use is using the copyrighted work and are more likely to find that nonprofit educational and non-commercial uses are fair. This does not mean, however, that all nonprofit educational and non-commercial uses are fair and all commercial uses are not fair. Instead, courts will balance the purpose and character of the use against the other factors below. Additionally, quote-unquote transformative uses are more likely to be considered fair. Transformative uses are those that add something new with a further purpose or different character and do not substitute the original use of the work. Would you say that Hassan Piker's reaction to my video would have added that context? No, I don't think so. Especially with Hassan Piker's, like, specific, I mean, I'm not, this is the thing. This is the big thing. That's the big thing where it's like, again, hiding behind fair use. If you actually read fair use, you guys lose. Like, because fair use is just an extension of the current copyright system that exists. And I believe that the current copyright system that exists is unfair inherently. And I've made tons of videos explaining why I think so. And ultimately, most, if not all, people who use the hide behind fair use paywall, like hide behind the fair use shield, usually just want to make it so that the copyright law then just makes it so that their specific versions of, how copyright system works is fair, but not everyone else's. And my examples of that are the current situation, the situation that just happened with Ethan Klein. Ethan Klein was at one point considered like the fair use king online, but then the second this new like Twitch stream style of React content came about, all of a sudden he's not happy, and he's saying that is not fair. Like, that's not fair use. You're just stealing. You're just committing piracy. Meanwhile, again, you could argue that the old versions of the H3 videos were also unfair. That's why there was a lawsuit in the first place, because there was a case that could be made, as I mentioned in that part, where it's like, even if you just take the heart of the video and only include that in your analysis, that can also be perceived as a thing that could detriment your use of the work. And I know this for a fact because I saw this with a Nostalgia Critic. I watched a Nostalgia Critic review of Hunchback of Notre Dame, and then after I watched his video of Hunchback of Notre Dame, at the end, he said, you should check out this movie for yourself. But when I watched that, it hit me, once he said that line, it immediately hit me, like, exactly why do I need to watch this movie now? I know everything that happens. I don't know, I clearly don't know I knew everything that happened to it because I watched the movie prior, but that was the big thing. It's like, I knew, he basically summarized the whole movie. I don't need to watch a movie after that because he basically summarized the whole movie. And yeah, he basically ruined the experience. If I had not already seen Hunchback of Notre Dame, then I would have no need to watch Hunchback of Notre Dame, because this review explicitly gives me everything I need to know about Hunchback of Notre Dame. He plays all the important scenes for the movie. And also, Sam Altman literally also argues that it's fair use. It's like, no. Like, he argues that, like, the fucking, like, they're, like, they explain, like, they're going after, like, AI in that thing, where it's like, oh, AI is saying that, like, obviously everybody, a lot of the mainstream people talking point is, like, AI is stealing. Okay, yeah, fair. But a lot of AI bros literally don't see that way. And Sam Altman literally believes, or at least he claims, that, like, AI should be considered fair use. AI stealing all these books should be classified as fair use. No, it's not. You guys just want to argue for the legalization of copyright infringement when you guys do it. When you specifically do a bad thing, you want to fight for your legal right to commit copyright infringement, but not everyone else's right. Maybe the streamers are a little bit different, because I'm pretty sure they don't really care that much. Maybe they don't. I don't know. At one point, I thought Ethan Klein wouldn't have cared. Sure enough, he seems to care now. But one of the biggest examples that made me kind of like explicitly go like, oh, this makes a lot of sense that they use this shield is the fact that Pokimane is involved with this organization. It's like, Pokimane literally got banned off of Twitch one time because she decided to stream the entirety of the Avatar: The Last Airbender series on her channel. And now they're arguing that, React content is fair use. No, it's not. And I say this as a person who has made React content. It's not fair use. It's not fair use. Just be upfront. Be upfront. You just want to legalize copyright infringement. Just say it. Just say it. Just actually say it. That I would respect you 10 times more if the organization just explicitly said copyright infringement is not a real crime. Based and red-pilled. Like, a lot of people, when I bring this up, they actually legitimately do not understand my point when I talk about this stuff. Like, I posted a comment underneath the Underzealot stream with Dems, where I literally just pointed out the fact, like, guys, I think really just the fact of the matter is, again, we all like to do the whole fair use, thing, but it's like, I think we need to really address the full fundamental root of this problem. And then a person replied to me saying, man, this guy wants to get rid of fair use instead of admitting that Ethan Klein is a rabid Zionist. And I'm literally just like, what in the actual fuck are you talking about? I didn't say I wanted to get rid of fair use. I mean, what did it technically count as getting rid of fair use? But like, my point is that I believe their copyright system in and of itself is unfair. Even if we just put a ban, like fighting for fair use is the equivalent of putting a band-aid on a bullet hole, is the equivalent of saying more black cops. But yeah, another issue with their streamer mentality, to an extent, is that sometimes the organization will make statements and, stuff very quickly and very reactive, much like how streamers should. Well, not even how streamers should. Streamers should not do that at all. I mean, to be real, I don't think I say I'll be real. I just gotta say, I just don't really like streams. Streams to me are always the special, rare thing. I prefer, I guess long form content that just you can I just don't like content where I could just or if I don't show up, I immediately can't enjoy the stream. You don't jump into a movie halfway through. Why would you jump into a video halfway through? Now I say that, and streamers literally will do that and literally just take people completely out of context by jumping into streams. I'm just name dropping Vosh at this point, where it's Vosh doing the whole what does FD65 want now, and then skipping halfway through the video to try and figure out his point. I was bro, just watch the fucking video. But this is a problem when you're an organization and you have to actually do things. I'll mention this. The org was originally very supportive of Graham Plattner. Then the controversy happened, which made their faces go red. I was whoops, we did a oopsie doodle. And when it was reported that Troy Jackson was interested in replacing him, somebody in their Discord server posted a rumor about something that Troy Jackson did, where he threw a water bottle allegedly at one of his colleagues. And they basically made this big statement where it's we should warn you all, Troy Jackson is this very bad person. We should not endorse him, blah, blah, blah. They made this big speech. And then, after it was quickly discovered this story was a lot more of a he said, she said thing, and not actually that fully corroborated to an extent, or Anti-Shore, there was a lot more context that really, really, really made it seem because the way they basically made it seem like Troy Jackson was an abusive asshole to women. Then there was a lot more context that was being put into it, and they very quickly deleted that post. But it's too late. Newsmax literally cites them in a hit piece against Troy Jackson. Very interesting to see the progressive ideologues be the ones who are now being cited in Newsmax fucking things. And I should mention this, coincidentally, Progressive Victory endorsed candidate was seeking the nomination against Jackson, Paige Loud. She is dropped out as of today, as of the day I'm recording this. But, again, this could be a coincidence, but, to prevent any journalistic malpractice, like their friend Ryan Grimm would say, I just felt the need that it was very quick to point out the fact that they had a horse in this race. And their response to when people call them out on these actions is that, well, we're just a young organization, we're still learning. And I'm yeah, that's kind of a problem. Learning is something that an organizer does, a person who is down on the totem pole. If I learned that DSA was being run by people who didn't know anything about how to run a political organization, that would be a problem. If you're running an actual political organization, you have to actually, not to be elitist in the sense, but you should probably put some years on your belt. You do some learning before you actually start doing the organizing. And the next thing that is a big problem with this organization to me is fully in the name, they're called Progressive Victory. Progressivism is not enough. I made a video about this prior. Progressivism is not enough. I'm sorry. The issues facing America at this point are beyond the need for progressives. And you might say, but your intro says progressive. Yes, progressive in a social context. Maybe I will. I don't even know. That's basically the element I'm going to go off of right now. Socially progressive. Because, yes, I'm still socially progressive, but the thing is, I am not a political progressive. I am a socialist. That is what I am. I believe that we are at the point where socialism is what we need, not progressivism. Progressive capitalism had its use, it's done. Time is over. We're running out of time. And the big problem is the fact that progressive is a term that's just too loose. Socialism is a loose term too, but it's less loose than progressive. A lot of people can use the term progressive and rally an organization around it. Remember, 1912 election, every single candidate ran as a progressive. All of them. I'm not kidding. All of the candidates ran as a progressive. Eugene Debs, Robert M. Follett, Teddy Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, Woodrow Wilson, Champ Clark. All of them literally claimed the title of progressive in some instance. And in the most recent race, we had people claiming that Abdul El-Sayed and Mallory McMorrow had to coalesce around one option because, well, we can't have two progressives running in the race, despite McMorrow not being a progressive in the way that people would claim that they are using the term progressive to mean. Because in the modern day, progressive to an extent is the term that would be used to describe Bernie-crats to an extent. Bernie Sanders basically brought the term back into political discourse and then also used terms like socialists a lot more, obviously. But again, we're beyond the point where people are even at the point where people are we're beyond the need for Bernie Sanders type politics. We need more radical politics than Bernie. And that's the thing. It's again, I think socialism is the baseline. Bernie Sanders can be the baseline at the very minimum, but at that point, anything less than that is just not useful. I'm sorry, Ro Khanna's kind of cool, but if he runs for president, no, I would not endorse him for president. I would probably, if he truly was the only guy running, maybe, but I would always prefer a socialist candidate over Ro Khanna. Progressives are allies purely in a popular front sense. They're allies purely in defeating fascism, nothing more. And and this is the thing, this organization claims that they understand this too. Progressive Victory will post a tweet where they say, they are pro-socialism. We must transform the U.S. economy. And yet they align and support Destiny and Brianna Wu, which was obviously the biggest contradiction and the reason why Hassan Piker did not join the organization. If he felt that if their label of progressive was wide enough to include those two, the organization did not fill him with the confidence that they are a good organization. It really strikes the vibe of progressive minus Palestine, ignoring the social failings of people like Destiny, but the fact that again, it's these are issues, their alleged issue is that they support Palestine, they support Ukraine. And then it's oh, by the way, here's Brianna Wu and Destiny, who are allied and supportive of the organization, who are absolutely rabid Zionists. And the second that a lot of the left said, we support children not being murdered, all of a sudden, these guys went from quote-unquote allies to full-on enemies. And another problem is that this organization isn't even really clear on what a progressive is. Because again, progressive is too vague of a term. That the fact that there are certain people who can be labeled as progressive just is... I just gotta say this. I'm a name dropping this specific individual specifically. This organization is absolutely obsessed with Mary Sattler Paltola. She was one of their first endorsements in this cycle for running for Senate in Alaska. Why? Why her? Why her of any of the candidates running? Mary Sattler Paltola was literally the vice chair of the Blue Dog Coalition, the right-wing Democratic caucus, who led the charge to defeat Joe Biden's agenda, Joe Biden's shitty agenda that wasn't even that good. They led the charge to defeat it because they thought it was too socialistic. She led the charge for that front. She was one of the 16 Democrats that bucked Biden's agenda and that Biden said, hey, let's rein in Israel a very tiny bit. And then she said, no thank you. Israel's my friend. And she's not even a signer of the pledge. Huh, interesting. It's hey, we're gonna endorse candidates that sign our pledge. Oh, well, we're also gonna endorse candidates that don't sign our pledge. What's the point? What's the point? I don't even get it. What is the fucking point? It's it would be the equivalent of DSA saying, hey, we're gonna endorse non-socialists for office. You're kind of defeating the whole point of the fucking organization at this point. Again, why back her of any of the candidates running for office in the United States right now? Because Vosh made a video saying that she was so cool and she was a fisher. And now a ton of people on the internet are obsessed with her. Even though, again, she was in the menage a trois with the fucking woman who's leading the charge to fucking beat SEALs to death. MGP and Mary Sattler Paltola, they have almost identical politics. And yet all these people hate, whatever her fucking name is, Gloomplumplubs, or whatever her fucking, middle name is. They hate her, but love Mary Sadler Peltola. She's, again, they have basically identical politics. Like, I mean, I mentioned earlier in the video where it was like Pat Ryan was the one centrist that I could actually argue people on the left could support. But even then, I don't think they should support him. He's not a good candidate otherwise. He's just slightly more have a brain in understanding that the party is AOC. And yeah. And I mean, another thing that also shows that Progressive Victory is weird in regards to certain things and like their certain like mentality is their endorsement for the 2028 presidential election. Because yes, they've actually officially, they're rare. They're an organization that has made it officially clear who they endorse for the 2028 presidential election. Jon Stewart. Why Jon Stewart over everyone else? Well, according to their tweet on the matter, quote, Jon isn't perfect, but his decades-long track record of integrity and progressivism make him the decisive pick. Yes, Jon, you are the fuck it candidate, and now run to become the fuck it president. Translation, they're fans of The Daily Show and want to see him run for president. That's it. Same reason why they would want Vosh to run for office, or Destiny to run for office, or Hassan to run for office. They're fans of these people and want to see them run for office. No. I don't want any of these people to run for office. Yes, even Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart's funny, and has had sometimes used his platform for good. And yeah, this is just this problem is 1 or 2 steps away from just asking Destiny or Vosh to run. And again, this is the streamer organization. Don't pretend that it's not possible that they're just going to flat out ask one of their streamer friends to run for office. Again, these streamers have run for office before. Don't think it's not possible that they're going to try again. 0 streamers for office. 0 political YouTubers should run for office, period. And now let's move on to the last point. And it's just this one where it's like, this is clearly more of a vote blue no matter who organization. Which, again, if you want to be that, fine, whatever. Again, just do what you want to do, whatever. I mean, when I first heard the organization, that's kind of what I thought it was initially. It's just meant to get these guys active in supporting Democratic nominees. And they were just going to focus on, swing state Dems that they thought weren't exactly bad. Again, them supporting Raphael Warnock as opposed to supporting Cherry Beasley because, Warnock is obviously better than Cherry Beasley. Even then, the organization probably could have been better used. I mean, that's another, I mentioned earlier in the episode, Mandela Barnes. I wasn't even planning on covering the Mandela Barnes story when I wrote him in the segment. They could have been better used in that time period to help Mandela Barnes run. That would have been more, not saying necessarily they shouldn't have stopped, not supported Raphael Warnock at all, but I'm just saying, Mandela Barnes, 1 point away from winning. You could have helped an actual progressive candidate run that race, but that's beside the point. It's kind of hard to really be insurgents and then also, casually be like, sure, Raphael Warnock and Mary Sadler Peltola are good enough for me. I mean, take DSA as an example. DSA only endorses some of the people that they especially feel are worth the support, especially on a national level. Maybe very early on, DSA was a lot more loose with their endorsements, but as the organization has gotten a lot more clear on their mission and their membership has risen, they've gotten a bit more strategic. Even Justice Democrats, to my knowledge, doesn't just casually, readily throw out support behind any Democrat that, the organization, whatever. The organization is literally primary. They don't just casually throw. It's the difference between a lot of other organizations. Our Revolution even itself has had some problems because they're a lot more liberal in their sense of throwing endorsements to whoever they want. Just as Democrats, they're a bit more stringent in regards to who they run. And they even run against so-called progressives like Mike Capuano and Jimmy Gomez. DSA's detractors will claim that PV and DSA are very similar, but you'll not be seeing DSA backing a hedge fund millionaire and Abu Ghraib prison guard. DSA can make individual choices on their own merit down the road, but DSA itself is a lot more stringent than people give it credit for. What was PV's stance on Biden and Kamala, and what was DSA's? And you wonder which organization is the better organization. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say on that. I'm not necessarily dissing people who, if you're a Progressive Victory member in my audience, feel free to give me a reason why you think I'm wrong in the comment section. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click that bell so you can find a future video when it comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.